When my grandmother died last August, my fiancé Marcus was perfect. He held me while I sobbed for hours. He drove me 3 hours to the funeral and 3 hours back without a single complaint. He sat with my family, sent flowers to my mom, brought my aunt a casserole. I told everyone he was the most caring man I had ever met. And then, sitting in our kitchen on a random Saturday morning, I found a Google Doc on his laptop called Handling Sarah. And in that document, 2 days after my grandmother's funeral, Marcus had written to his mother, "Sarah is very emotional and vulnerable right now. This is an important bonding opportunity." And his mother, a retired school counselor, wrote back, "Yes. Be consistent and present. Physical affection, acts of service, minimal conflict. This period will significantly increase her attachment and trust if handled correctly." If handled correctly. My grandmother died, and they treated it like a window to raise my score on their compliance chart. That document was 47 pages long, shared between my fiancé and his mother for 4 years, and it contained strategies, scripts, behavioral ratings, and step-by-step instructions on how to manage me like I was a problem employee who might snap at any moment. But to understand how we got here, I need to take you back to the beginning. Before I do though, if this story is already making your jaw drop, hit that like button and subscribe. I post stories like this every single week and trust me, they only get crazier from here. Now let me tell you the whole thing. My name is Sarah, I am 29, and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I work as a pediatric occupational therapist at a children's hospital. My fiancé Marcus is 31, works in commercial insurance underwriting, which is exactly as boring as it sounds, but he makes decent money. We have been together 4 years and 3 months, engaged for 7 months. Our wedding was supposed to be in October. I say was because right now I am sitting in my car in the parking lot of a Panera Bread at like 9:30 on a Tuesday morning, engine running because it is freezing, and my hands are shaking so badly I had to put my coffee down before I dumped it all over my lap. I met Marcus at a barbecue in the summer of 2022 through mutual friends. Late June, I think. It was stupid hot outside and someone had set up one of those misting fans on the patio. He was quiet, thoughtful, the kind of guy who actually remembered what you said. I mentioned a certification exam once, just in passing, and he texted me good luck the morning of. I said I liked this specific Malbec from Trader Joe's and it just appeared at his apartment next time I came over. I told my best friend Keely that it felt like he actually listened to me, which, I know, that sounds like such a low bar, but after my last 2 relationships it genuinely felt like a miracle. What I did not know was that he was not just listening. He was taking notes. Literally. Marcus is close with his family. His mother Diane is a retired school counselor, very put together, always has her nails done, very warm in that specific way where she asks you tons of questions and makes you feel like you are the only person in the room. His dad passed when Marcus was 19, so Diane raised him and his younger sister Tessa mostly alone. I respected that bond. I thought it was sweet. And the first time I met Diane, she hugged me and said, "Oh, Marcus has told me so much about you, I just think you are wonderful." She asked about my job, my training for a half marathon, even remembered details I had only mentioned to Marcus in passing. I left that dinner thinking I had won the mother-in-law lottery. I actually texted my mom on the drive home saying I think his mom might be cooler than you, sorry. My mom sent back a middle finger emoji. Here is what I did not know. The reason Diane remembered those details was not because Marcus casually mentioned things the way a normal son talks to his mom. He was transcribing our conversations, summarizing our arguments, forwarding screenshots of our texts, from before we were even officially dating. And his mother was writing back with instructions. Let me tell you exactly how I found out. This past Saturday morning, Marcus was in the shower. His laptop was open on the kitchen table, the one we got from IKEA that wobbles if you lean on it wrong. He had asked me to look up the name of a florist we were considering for the wedding because he wanted to send it to his cousin. So I sat down, opened Chrome, and when I went to type in the search bar, his recent Google Docs popped up. The third one down said Handling Sarah, last edited 2 days ago. I was not snooping. I want to be really clear about that. I was doing exactly what he asked me to do. But when you see a document with your name and the word handling in front of it, you click on it. Anyone would. You just would. The document was shared between Marcus and Diane. He was the owner, she had editing access. Created September 14, 2022. That was 3 weeks after our first date. We had been on maybe 4 dates. 4. And already, there was a document. And what was inside would unravel everything I thought I knew about my relationship. The first section was called Background and Personality Profile. It had a full summary of my personality traits, communication style, attachment style, and my quote-unquote triggers. It said I value direct communication, that I get defensive when I feel dismissed, that I have a complicated relationship with my own mother, that I shut down when overwhelmed. All things I had shared with Marcus late at night, in bed, in the dark, when I thought I was building real intimacy with someone I trusted. Stuff I barely even told Keely. Below that was a section called Strategy Notes. And this is where I started to feel physically sick. Like actually nauseous. Diane had written, and I am quoting directly because I screenshot every single page, Sarah seems to respond well to validation before redirection. When she is upset, do not immediately offer solutions. Mirror her feelings back first, then after she feels heard, introduce your perspective as a question rather than a statement. This makes her believe she arrived at the conclusion herself. I need you to sit with that sentence. This makes her believe she arrived at the conclusion herself. That is not advice from a concerned mom. That is a manipulation playbook. There were dated entries going back to October 2022. Marcus would describe a situation or argument. Diane would respond with analysis and a recommended approach. Then there was a follow-up note about whether the strategy worked. Some entries had an actual numerical rating from 1 to 10 on what they called receptiveness, meaning how receptive I was to being managed without realizing it. 4 years. Dissected like a lab experiment. But the specific entries are what truly broke me. March 2023. Our first real fight. Marcus had cancelled plans with me to help Diane move furniture, and it was the third time that month he had bailed on me for something with his mom. I was upset. I cried. Probably overdid it honestly, but I was so frustrated. In the document, Marcus wrote Sarah is upset about the furniture situation. She says I prioritize mom over her. She brought up the other 2 cancellations which I did not think she would remember specifically. She cried. And Diane wrote back let her express the emotion fully without interrupting. Then say I hear you and I understand why that pattern would be frustrating. Pause. Then say I want to find a balance that works for both of us and ask her what that would look like. Do not apologize for helping me. Frame it as a scheduling issue, not a priority issue. I remember that conversation. I remember Marcus saying those almost exact words. I remember sitting on our couch thinking wow, he really gets it. I felt so heard. So respected. And the whole time, he was reading from a script his mother wrote. That alone was bad enough. But then I found the therapy entries. We started seeing a couples therapist named Dr. Patel in January 2024. Normal stuff, household responsibilities, communication patterns. I thought we were making real progress. What I did not know was that after every single session, Marcus summarized everything in the document. What I said, what Dr. Patel suggested, what exercises she recommended. And Diane would annotate it. She wrote things like the therapist is pushing him toward an enmeshment framework which is not accurate to their dynamic. Marcus should redirect the next session toward Sarah's conflict avoidance patterns instead. She was counter-strategizing our couples therapy. Our therapist would suggest something and Diane would tell Marcus how to neutralize it. No wonder it felt like we kept going in circles. No wonder certain topics never got resolved. We would have the same fight about his mom every 6 weeks and I thought it was me. I thought I was the one who could not let it go. He was actively sabotaging the process based on his mother's coaching. But the part that made me grab my keys and leave the apartment without a word while Marcus was still in the shower. The part that I will never, I think, fully recover from. It was the section titled Intimate Life Notes. I am not going to share the specific details because they are mine and they have already been violated enough. But Marcus told his mother about our bedroom life. Not vaguely. Specifically. What I liked, what I did not, what I was self-conscious about, things I had never told anyone, things I barely even admitted to myself. And Diane, this retired school counselor, this woman who hugged me and called me wonderful, had written clinical observations about how physical intimacy could be used as a quote-unquote bonding reinforcement tool to improve Sarah's overall compliance and emotional attachment. Compliance. She used the word compliance about her son's fiancé. About a human being she hugged at Thanksgiving. I drove straight to Keely's apartment. I could not even speak at first, I just handed her my phone with the screenshots pulled up and let her read. She read for about 10 minutes, just scrolling, and her face kept doing this thing where her mouth would open and close. Then she looked up at me and said, "Sarah, this is insane." Then she got quiet for a second and said, "Some of this stuff, the language, it sounds like what they teach in those manipulation seminars, those pick-up artist type things but for relationships." She was right. I looked it up later. The techniques in that document mirror content from influence and persuasion programs. Diane had been applying professional-grade behavioral management strategies to her son's girlfriend for 4 years. And I had absolutely no idea. Marcus called me 6 times while I was at Keely's. I did not answer. He texted where are you, then you just left without saying anything, then I am getting worried please call me, then did I do something wrong? That last one. Did I do something wrong? 4 years of documented manipulation and he texts me did I do something wrong like he left a dish in the sink. Around 2 in the afternoon I texted him back. Just one message. I said I found the Google Doc Marcus. I found handling Sarah. Then I turned my phone off and shoved it in Keely's junk drawer. Keely let me stay Saturday night. I did not sleep. Not even a little. I just kept scrolling through the screenshots, going back and forth, finding all the moments I thought were genuine and seeing the machinery behind them. The time he surprised me with that weekend trip to Asheville. Documented. Strategy approved. The way he handled meeting my dad for the first time. Scripted. Right down to the handshake and the compliment about my dad's workshop. And that brings us to the moment I told you about at the start. The entry about my grandmother. August 2023. Nana. We were incredibly close, she practically raised me during the summers, taught me to make her biscuits, the whole thing. Her death gutted me. And I already told you what they wrote. Bonding opportunity. Increase her attachment and trust if handled correctly. I read that at 3 in the morning on Keely's couch, the TV was still on playing some infomercial for a blender, and I cried harder than I cried at the actual funeral. Because at least at the funeral I thought someone genuinely loved me. Sunday morning I went back to the apartment. Marcus was sitting at the kitchen table, still in the same clothes from Saturday. The laptop was closed this time. He had clearly been rereading the document trying to figure out how much I saw. I sat down across from him and said I need you to explain this to me. 47 pages, Marcus. 4 years. Explain it. And here is where it gets complicated. Because he did not deny it. He did not deflect or try to spin it. He started crying. He said I know how this looks, Sarah. I know. I am so sorry. He said it started as him just asking his mom for advice because he really liked me and was terrified of messing things up. He said she is a counselor, he trusted her perspective, and it just kind of snowballed from there. He said he never meant for it to become what it became. I said Marcus, there is a scoring system. You rated me on a scale of 1 to 10. Do you hear yourself? He said I know. He said most of that was his mom's idea, she liked structure and data because of her counseling background, and he just went along with it because it seemed like it was working. I said you told her about our therapy sessions. She was coaching you to undermine Dr. Patel. That defeats the entire purpose. He said he did not see it as undermining, he saw it as getting additional perspective. His mom had decades of experience. Which, okay, I wanted to throw something at him when he said that. I said you told your mother specific details about our intimate life and she used the word compliance about me. He went quiet for a long time. Just staring at his hands. Then he said I know that part was wrong. I knew it when I wrote it and I did it anyway and I cannot explain why except that the document became this thing where I told her everything. There were no boundaries anymore. It was like a journal that someone else could read and respond to. I said the someone else was your mother, Marcus. Not a therapist. Not a neutral party. Your mother, who has her own agenda, who was not trying to help us, she was trying to keep control over you. He got real quiet. Then he said something I have not been able to stop thinking about. He said you are right. But my mom lost my dad when I was 19. I am all she really has. She is not trying to control me, she is terrified of losing me. This was her way of making sure my relationship worked, because if it works, I am happy, and if I am happy, I stay close. It is not malicious. It is fear. And a small part of me understood that. A very small part. Because I have seen the love Diane has for Marcus and I do not think she is evil. I think she is a grieving woman who weaponized her professional training to make sure she never lost her son the way she lost her husband. But understanding why someone hurts you does not undo the hurt. And what happened next made things even messier. I told Marcus I needed space. I took off my engagement ring, a sapphire with small diamonds on the band. He chose it because I mentioned once that I thought sapphires were more beautiful than diamonds, probably at some brunch I do not even remember, and I put it on the kitchen table. He looked at it and started crying again and said please do not make a decision right now, just give me a chance to fix this. I said I am not deciding anything yet. I am giving myself room to decide later. I went back to Keely's. Called my mom. Called my sister. Scheduled an individual session with Dr. Patel, which, she does not normally see patients on short notice but I think she could hear in my voice that this was bad. The opinions came flooding in and none of them agreed. My mother said leave, no question, this cannot be repaired. My sister said the same thing but way harsher. She said that man let his mother treat you like a Tamagotchi and you need to run. That is an exact quote, and honestly it would be funny if I was not falling apart. Keely was more measured. She said the document is unforgivable, full stop. But she has watched Marcus with me for 4 years and she does not think the whole relationship was fake. She thinks he genuinely loves me but has a deeply broken dynamic with his mother that he does not know how to fix. She said the tragedy is that instead of getting help through real therapy, he outsourced the problem to the person causing it. And I thought that was probably the smartest thing anyone had said about the whole situation. Then Sunday evening, Marcus's sister Tessa called me. She was crying. She said she just found out and she was horrified. She had no idea the document existed. She said, "Sarah, I love my brother, but what he did is not okay and I want you to know I am on your side." That meant the world because Tessa and I are close, we do brunch almost every other weekend, and I was genuinely terrified she would circle the wagons with her family. But then Tessa told me something that changed everything. She said Diane has always been like this. When Tessa was dating her now husband Greg, Diane had a whole system for him too. Not a Google Doc back then, this was like 2016, but an actual physical notebook. A spiral-bound notebook where she wrote observations and strategies about Greg. Tessa found it when she was 22 and had a massive blowout with Diane over it. That is why their relationship has been strained ever since. Tessa thought Diane had stopped. She feels guilty now for not warning me. So this was not a one-time thing. This is a pattern. Diane did it to Tessa's relationship and she did it to mine. Technology just made it easier the second time. Monday I saw Dr. Patel. I told her everything. Showed her the screenshots. She was visibly upset, which, if you know therapists, they usually keep a stone face about everything, but she was genuinely shaken. She said the integrity of our couple's therapy had been compromised and she would not continue sessions with Marcus unless he did significant individual work around boundaries and enmeshment first. She said many of the techniques in the document were manipulative and that using therapeutic language to manage someone without their consent is emotional deception. That phrase, emotional deception, it hit me like a truck. She asked how I was feeling. I said I feel like I do not know what was real. She said that is one of the most painful things a person can experience in a relationship. She said even if Marcus's feelings were real, the expression of those feelings was filtered through a strategy, and that makes trust almost impossible to rebuild. Not impossible. Almost impossible. I noticed she did not say impossible. Tuesday morning, today, Marcus came to Keely's. I almost did not let him in but Keely gave me a look like, just hear him out. He brought a 6-page handwritten letter. And I mean handwritten, not typed. His handwriting is terrible, always has been, and he clearly wrote it fast because some of it I had to squint to read. He took full responsibility. Did not blame Diane, did not make excuses. He said he was a coward who used his mother as a crutch because he was afraid of failing on his own. He said he always felt like he was not good enough for me and having his mother's guidance made him feel like he could be the partner I deserved. He said the irony is not lost on him that the thing he did to try to keep me is the thing that will lose me. He said he already called a therapist for individual sessions. He told Diane the document is deleted and their dynamic has to completely change or he will cut contact. He said he will do whatever it takes, however long, and he understands if it is not enough. I read that letter in Keely's bathroom sitting on the edge of the bathtub and I cried. Because it was beautiful and raw and honest. And then the thought crept in. Is this real, or did he call Diane first and ask her what to write? Is this letter genuine or is this another play from the handbook? And that is exactly what they did to me. They destroyed my ability to take anything at face value. Every kind thing Marcus has ever done, every sweet text, every perfect response to a fight, I now have to wonder if it came from him or from a retired school counselor with a shared Google Doc and too much time on her hands. But then I went back through the document one last time. And buried in the middle, in a section from July 2023, I found something Marcus wrote that Diane never responded to. It was not a strategy request or a behavioral report. It said, "Mom, I think I am falling in love with her for real and it scares me because what if she finds out about all this and leaves? What if she finds out I needed help to be good enough for her? I do not want to lose her." Diane never replied to that entry. She just moved on to the next strategy section like it was not even there. And I do not know what to make of it. But I keep reading it over and over. There was also one more entry that haunts me. November 2024, right after the proposal. Marcus wrote Sarah said yes. She cried. It was perfect. And Diane responded wonderful. Phase 2 begins. We need to discuss wedding planning strategy and integration with her family dynamics. Phase 2. Our engagement was the end of Phase 1 and the beginning of Phase 2. Like a military campaign. Like a corporate acquisition. Like anything except what it should have been, which was just two people being happy. So here is where things stand. Wednesday morning I told Marcus the October wedding is off. Not postponed. Off. If we are going to figure out whether this survives, it will not be on a timeline that includes a wedding date and caterer deposits. He agreed immediately. Did not push back at all. I gave him 3 conditions. 1. 6 months minimum of individual therapy before we even discuss couples counseling again. 2. I need to see real evidence of boundaries with Diane, not words but actual changes in how they communicate, because I have heard him promise to set boundaries before and it never sticks. 3. He needs to be able to tell me, without anyone coaching him, why what he did was wrong. Not just that it was wrong, but why. Because he keeps saying I should have set boundaries with my mom, and yeah, obviously, but the real issue is that he participated in dehumanizing me and he needs to reckon with that specifically. He agreed to all 3. Diane sent me an email Tuesday night. Long, well-written, perfectly structured, full of therapeutic language about attachment and grief and how losing Marcus's father rewired her relationship with control. She said she never saw me as a project and the document was just her way of being involved. She said she has enormous respect for me and hopes I can forgive her. I have not responded. And I do not know if I will. Her email was eloquent and measured and hit every right emotional note, and I no longer trust anything from that family that hits all the right notes. That is what they took from me. The ability to hear something nice and just believe it. Tessa has been checking on me every day. She is the only person in Marcus's family I trust right now, because she is the one who saw this pattern years ago and fought back when nobody else did. She told me Diane called her crying about the whole situation and Tessa said, "Mom, you do not get to be the victim here," and Diane hung up on her. Which, honestly, tells you everything. Then Thursday, something unexpected happened. Marcus showed me his phone, unprompted, nobody asked him to. He showed me he deleted the Google Doc permanently, not just trashed it. He showed me a text to Diane saying, "Mom, I love you but I need space, I will reach out when I am ready, please do not contact Sarah." He showed me a confirmed therapy appointment for Monday with a guy named Dr. Whitfield who specializes in enmeshment. And he showed me that he started a journal. A private one. Leather-bound, he bought it at Target, still had the price sticker on the back, $14.99. No sharing, no feedback loop, no one else reading and responding. He said he is trying to learn how to process his own thoughts without running them through another person first. I am not saying this fixes anything. I am not saying I forgive him. Not even close. But it matters. It matters because for the first time in maybe our entire relationship, he is doing something without a script. Something messy and uncertain and entirely his own. No strategy doc. No coaching. Just a 31-year-old man sitting with a cheap journal trying to figure out who he is without his mother's voice in his head telling him what to write. The ring is still in my purse. I take it out and look at it sometimes when I am alone. Sapphire with small diamonds. He picked it because I mentioned once that sapphires were prettier than diamonds. I used to think he remembered because he loved me. Now I do not know if he remembered because his mother told him to catalogue my preferences in a shared spreadsheet. Maybe both things are true. Maybe that is the part one have to sit with. Here is what I keep coming back to. If Marcus had just called his mom after a fight and said, "Hey, Sarah and I argued about this, what do you think?" I would not care. That is normal. Everyone does that. What makes this different is the system. The scores. The scripts. The phases. The 47 pages. This was not a son asking for advice. This was a collaborative project to manage another human being who had no idea she was being managed. And the worst part is that it worked. I thought Marcus was the most emotionally intelligent man I had ever been with. I told my friends that. I told my therapist that. I bragged about how he always knew exactly the right thing to say. He always knew the right thing to say because someone was telling him what to say. I was performing in a play where everyone had the script except me. So I do not know what happens next. Part of me loves him and believes the real Marcus is in there somewhere, buried under years of his mother's influence. Part of me thinks a man who watched me grieve my grandmother and wrote it up as a bonding opportunity is not someone I can ever feel safe with again. Part of me thinks he is 31 years old and at some point you stop blaming your upbringing and own your choices. I go back and forth about 50 times a day. Dr. Patel told me trust this broken takes years to rebuild and there are no guarantees. My mom says leave. My sister says run. Keely says it is complicated. Tessa says it is fixable if he does the work. Marcus says he will do anything. And me. I am taking it one day at a time. I am not making any permanent decisions while I still feel like the ground got ripped out from under me. What I do know is that last Friday I was a woman picking between ivory and cream napkins for her October wedding, stressing over seating charts and whether my uncle could sit near the open bar without causing a scene, excited about her future with a man she thought she understood completely. And now I am a woman who found a document called Handling Sarah and has to figure out how to handle the rest of her life without ever fully trusting that a kind word is just a kind word. That entry from July 2023 still sits with me though. Mom, I think I am falling in love with her for real and it scares me. Diane never replied. She just moved on to the next strategy. And somehow, that unanswered line might be the most honest thing in all 47 pages. So Reddit, am I wrong for considering giving him another chance? Or am I wrong for not leaving immediately? Because depending on who I ask, I am making the wrong choice either way. I just know that somewhere between a manipulation playbook and an unanswered confession of real love, there is a truth I have not found yet. And I owe it to myself to figure out what it is before I decide anything for good.